Returning to our top story this evening in the ongoing search for Nancy Guthrie. The Pima County Sheriff's Department says the suspect's clothes may have been purchased from Walmart, but they're not exclusively available at that store. Right now, Savannah Guthrie shares a new message for hope as a piece of evidence found near the scene of her mother's disappearance could provide some answers. Ashley Banfield, who hosts her own podcast called Drop Dead Serious, is breaking exclusives on this case like nobody's business. And yesterday, she had quite a doozy. This is the leaked FBI interrogation of Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, and you're about to watch a man destroy himself in real time. The footage was sealed inside a federal case file, never supposed to reach the public. But it did. And what it captured over 6 hours inside a windowless room changes everything about this case. It starts with a son-in-law in pajamas at 5:30 a.m., still believing he can outsmart 2 FBI agents, performing shock, performing grief, performing the worried family member so convincingly that for the first 90 minutes, you'd almost believe him. Almost. Then the lead agent reaches for a laptop, presses play on a traced phone call from 2:47 a.m., and the performance dies in 4 seconds flat. What comes out of that speaker is the son-in-law's own voice discussing things about NY's kidnapping that only the person who planned it would ever know. And that recording isn't even the most damaging thing in the room. The footage opens cold. Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law is being walked into a stark, windowless FBI interview room at 5:30 a.m. Still in the pajamas he was wearing when a SWAT team put a battering ram through his front door an hour earlier. Hair uncombed, eyes swollen, but already performing, already projecting this theatrical confusion, blinking under the fluorescent lights like a man who couldn't possibly fathom why federal agents just dragged him out of bed. 2 agents sit down across from him. Lead interrogator, Special Agent Russell Dante, a 23-year veteran out of the FBI's Violent Crimes Division, known internally for his ability to break suspects who believe they're smarter than everyone in the room. His partner, a younger agent who barely speaks for the entire next 6 hours, but whose pen never stops moving, documenting every word, every flinch, every micro-expression that crosses the son-in-law's face. Here's the catch. Agent Dante reads the Miranda warnings, and the son-in-law waves them off like they're an inconvenience. Doesn't hesitate. Doesn't ask for a moment to think. He declines an attorney with the casual arrogance of a man who has already decided he's going to outmaneuver 2 federal investigators and walk out of this building before lunch. That single decision, made in less than 3 seconds, destroyed his life. His opening performance is polished. I have absolutely no idea why I'm here. This is insane. I would never hurt Nancy. She's my mother-in-law. I love her like my own mother. Leaning forward, hands flat on the table, steady eye contact, every word rehearsed, every gesture calculated. He'd clearly spent time preparing for the possibility that this moment might come. What he didn't prepare for was Russell Dante. The rehearsed timeline. When agents ask him to walk through the evening Nancy disappeared, he delivers his story with a kind of consistency that only comes from repetition. Nancy came for dinner at his and Annie's home. They played card games, NY's favorite, the same one she'd been playing since her daughters were children. She was in great spirits. Around 9:45 p.m., he volunteered to drive her home because it was dark. He describes walking Nancy to her front door, waiting until he heard the lock click behind her, and driving away feeling satisfied she was safe. He adds granular details to build credibility. What Nancy wore, what she ate, how she laughed telling a story about her late husband during dessert. That last detail is important. Remember it, because it means the last evening Nancy Guthrie spent as a free woman ended with her laughing at her own dinner table, surrounded by family she trusted completely, including the man sitting across from Agent Dante right now. Now, pay attention to this next part. For 90 full minutes, the son-in-law maintained total composure, answered every question without hesitation, showed 0 signs of nervousness. He even asked the agents how the investigation was going, playing the concerned relative eager to help find Nancy rather than the man who arranged her abduction. Agent Dante let him talk, let him repeat his story, Let him grow more confident with each telling because Dante wasn't gathering information anymore. He was building a runway, giving this man every opportunity to lock himself into a version of events that was about to be demolished by a single audio recording. But the rehearsed timeline was just the calm before something much worse. What Agent Dante had been waiting 90 minutes to play changed the temperature of that room in under 4 seconds. The phone call. 90 minutes in, the son-in-law is leaning back now, almost relaxed, delivering his third retelling of that evening with growing confidence. Agent Dante signals to his partner without breaking eye contact with the suspect. The younger agent produces a laptop and audio equipment, sets them on the table without explanation. Dante's entire demeanor shifts. The conversational warmth drains out of his voice like water through a cracked glass. He leans forward and says 7 words. I want you to listen very carefully. The son-in-law's initial reaction, mild curiosity, a flicker of amusement, even as if he's genuinely interested in whatever the FBI thinks they have. That curiosity lasted exactly as long as it took for the speakers to fill that room with his own voice. The recording is a traced phone call from a burner phone to the son-in-law's personal cell at 2:47 a.m. A conversation where the kidnapper discusses NY's deteriorating condition, the failed ransom plan, and what to do with her now that the situation has spiraled beyond recovery. The son-in-law's voice on that recording isn't ambiguous, isn't similar. It's him speaking with familiarity, discussing logistics, referencing details about NY's captivity that only someone running the operation would know. And get this, the physical transformation captured on that footage is something that once you see it, you can never unsee. The color drains from his face in real time, not a figure of speech. His skin goes from normal to gray in seconds. His hands, steady on that table for over an hour, start trembling so violently the camera picks it up from 6 feet away. His whole body recoils backward, the confident lean replaced by the posture of a man who wants to disappear into his chair. His eyes dart between Dante and the second agent, searching for escape, finding nothing. The recording ends. Silence swallows the room. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 7. Agent Dante lets the silence do the work. Lets it press down on the son-in-law like a physical weight. Then he breaks it with devastating simplicity. That's your voice, isn't it? The son-in-law tries denial. That doesn't sound like me. His voice cracks on the word me. I don't know what that is. But the weakness in every syllable betrays him. He knows. They know. The camera knows. Dante plays the recording again. This time he pauses at specific moments, isolating statements that prove coordination with NY's kidnapper. Each pause is surgical. Each one strips away another layer of the performance. The son-in-law's breathing changes visibly on the footage, shallow and rapid like someone fighting the urge to be sick. His rehearsed calm is completely gone, replaced by the darting eyes and involuntary swallowing of a man in full survival mode. He pivots, scrambling for anything that might work. The call was about something else entirely. Business matters. A personal situation with his cousin Marcus that investigators are misinterpreting. Anything other than what that recording clearly and unmistakably captured him doing. Dante lets that explanation sit in the air for exactly long enough to make the son-in-law think it might work. The younger agent glances at Dante. Dante's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, the only visible reaction from a man who has sat across from killers for 2 decades. Then he nods toward the folder. If this is your first time here and you're already locked in, subscribe right now. Because what agents pulled out of that folder next made the phone call look like a warm-up. The text messages. The second agent drops a thick folder on the table. The sound it makes is heavy. Inside are printed copies of every text message exchange between the son-in-law's phone and Marcus' phone, spanning the 3 weeks before Nancy disappeared through the night she was taken. Agent Dante begins reading them aloud, slowly, deliberately, sliding each printed page across the table so the son-in-law can see his own words reflected back at him in black ink. Thursday night works best. Her routine is predictable. You'll need to disable the doorbell camera first thing. I'll tell you exactly where it is. The back door is the weak point. Front door has too much security. She takes sleeping pills around 10 p.m. Get an hour after that. Each message strips away another layer of pretense. The son-in-law's face tells the entire story. That slow, sickening realization that every text he sent while planning this crime had been recovered, preserved, and was now being read back to him under fluorescent lights in a federal building. These aren't vague messages open to interpretation. They reference NY's specific routine, her home layout, her vulnerability window, her medication schedule, the woman who laughed at dinner and trusted this man to drive her home safely, reduced to a target profile in his own text messages. Agent Dante pauses after reading the last message, lets the weight of it settle. The younger agent's pen has stopped again. He's looking directly at the son-in-law, now, with an expression the footage captures clearly. Not anger, not disgust, but something closer to disbelief. As if even after years of working violent crime cases, the calculated coldness of those messages toward a family member registered as something different. But here's where it gets really dark. The son-in-law claims his phone was hacked. Someone else sent those messages to frame him. Agent Dante doesn't even blink. Cell tower records place the phone at locations matching the son-in-law's verified whereabouts when each message was sent. His workplace, his home, restaurants where credit card receipts confirm his presence. The timestamps align with his daily routine in ways that would be physically impossible for a remote hacker to replicate without carrying the phone in his pocket 24 hours a day. He pivots again. Marcus fabricated the messages, spoofed them somehow. That crumbles too. The messages exist on Marcus' phone, on the laptop. 3 hours into the interrogation, Agent Dante stops talking entirely. Instead, he reaches into an evidence box and removes a silver laptop sealed inside a transparent forensic evidence bag. The son-in-law recognizes it instantly. The footage catches the involuntary reaction before he can hide it. His shoulders tense, his breathing quickens, and his eyes lock onto the bag with something that looks very close to panic. "That's my computer," he says quietly. Dante nods once. It was. Earlier that morning, FBI digital forensic specialists had executed a search warrant at the son-in-law's home. They cloned the laptop's solid-state drive before anyone in the house even realized what investigators were looking for. The original machine remained untouched. Every deleted file, every browser search, every encrypted folder preserved exactly as it existed. Dante removes several printed pages instead of opening the laptop itself. He knows the paper is more devastating because the suspect can't pretend the agents manipulated anything live on screen. "Let's talk about your internet searches," Dante says. The first page contains browser history from the month before Nancy vanished. Can police trace burner phones? How long before a missing person is presumed dead? Can deleted text messages be recovered by FBI? How to bypass Ring doorbell cameras. Inheritance disputes after suspicious death. Each search individually could be explained away. Together, they painted a roadmap to conspiracy. The son-in-law tries anyway. Curiosity, news articles, random internet browsing. Dante keeps reading. The next page is worse. Searches conducted within hours after Nancy disappeared. How accurate is cell tower tracking? Can the FBI recover deleted cloud files? Best way to wipe laptop permanently. Federal kidnapping sentence, first offense. The timing destroys every innocent explanation. These weren't theoretical questions asked months or years earlier. They were panic searches performed after Nancy vanished, after ransom demands had already begun, after law enforcement publicly announced the investigation. Then Agent Dante delivers what may be the hardest blow of the entire interrogation. You deleted all of this. He slides over the forensic recovery report. Every deleted search had been restored. Every erased browser session recovered. Every attempt to cover his tracks documented with timestamps. The son-in-law stares at the pages without speaking. His lips move slightly, but no words come out. Digital forensics had turned his own computer into a witness against him. Dante isn't finished. A recovered spreadsheet appears next. At first glance, it looks like ordinary financial planning. Monthly expenses, retirement projections, investment accounts. Then highlighted rows near the bottom reveal something different. Expected inheritance after Nancy, estimated legal fees, property liquidation values, even projected tax obligations on inherited assets. The calculations assumed Nancy's estate would transfer within months. The spreadsheet had been last edited just days before her disappearance. The younger agent finally speaks for the first time in hours. "You already spent her money, didn't you?" No answer. Just silence. Dante lets it linger before producing one final document recovered from the laptop. A draft ransom note. Never sent. An earlier version containing wording almost identical to the note eventually delivered after Nancy disappeared. Same phrases. Same grammatical mistakes. Same demand structure. Different amount. It wasn't just similar. It was the rough draft. The footage captures the son-in-law closing his eyes for nearly 15 seconds. Not praying, not thinking, just sitting motionless as the realization settled in that investigators hadn't merely uncovered pieces of his plan. They had uncovered the blueprint. Every explanation he'd offered during the first 3 hours collapsed under the weight of digital evidence he believed had been erased forever. And yet, despite everything on that table, the most revealing part of the interrogation still hadn't happened. It came when Agent Dante stopped talking about evidence entirely and started talking about Nancy herself. The breaking point. 4.5 hours in, the leaked footage shows a man physically unraveling. Slumped posture, visible exhaustion, hands that won't stop shaking. The confident innocence from the first hour is gone, replaced by the hollow expression of someone who has run out of lies and knows it. Agent Dante recognizes the breaking point and shifts tactics completely. The confrontational pressure disappears, replaced by something warmer, more dangerous. After hours of battering the suspect with evidence, Dante becomes the understanding ally, offering a path to redemption. "Look, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen a lot of people in your situation. Things start as one thing and spiral into something you never intended. Maybe you just want to scare Nancy. Get her to reconsider the will changes. Maybe you thought Marcus would hold her for a day or two and let her go once she agreed. Things got out of hand. It happens." Then Dante leans forward, drops his voice. "But right now, Nancy is out there somewhere. She's 84 years old. She doesn't have her heart medication. She doesn't have her blood pressure pills. She has a framed photo of her grandchildren in her purse that she carries everywhere. And she's alone without anyone who cares about her. You can stop that suffering right now in this room." The son-in-law's rigid defensiveness cracks. His eyes fill with tears for the first time in 4.5 hours. And then comes the first real admission. Small but seismic. "I knew Marcus was having financial problems. I gave him some money to help out." How much? Maybe $20,000. That single answer contradicted everything he'd said. He claimed not to remember where the cash withdrawals went. Now, he's admitting $20,000 went directly to the man who physically kidnapped Nancy. The financial link between orchestrator and accomplice established in the suspect's own words. And that crack in the wall, it was about to become a complete collapse. Blame shifting and collapse. With total denial dead, the son-in-law pivoted to his last strategy, admitting a connection to Marcus while insisting his cousin acted alone. Marcus was desperate, unstable, must have independently planned the kidnapping using information overheard during family conversations. Those texts sent from his phone when he wasn't looking, fabricated somehow. Agent Dante let him build this narrative for several minutes, nodded along, took notes, gave every indication the news story was being taken seriously. Then he pulled it apart with a single sentence. "We have Marcus in the next room, and he's telling us something very different." The blood left the son-in-law's face for the second time that morning. "Marcus says you approached him with a plan," laid the whole thing out. The timeline, the entry point when Nancy would be most vulnerable. "You offered him $50,000 to take her and hold her until she died without her medications, or until you collected ransom." He's giving us specifics. The restaurant where you met to plan, the parking lot where you handed him cash, instructions about NY's home that he couldn't possibly know unless you personally told him. He even knows which sleeping pills Nancy takes and what time she takes them. That's not information a man picks up from casual family conversation. Here's the catch. Criminals almost always assume loyalty among conspirators. They build entire escape plans around the belief that their accomplices will stay silent, absorb the consequences, and protect them rather than cooperate. That assumption is almost universally wrong when federal charges enter the picture. When Marcus realized he was facing decades in a federal prison, not state, federal, loyalty evaporated in a matter of hours. Self-preservation 1. It always does. Additional evidence piled on. Security camera footage from a restaurant showing the two men meeting privately multiple times before Nancy vanished. Witness statement from staff who overheard them discussing a job and taking care of a problem. Financial records proving promise payments beyond the $30,000 already delivered. Cornered completely, the son-in-law attempted one final maneuver, a carefully worded partial confession designed to minimize legal exposure. The kidnapping discussions were hypothetical. He may have mentioned details about NY's routine, but never explicitly told Marcus to take her. Agent Dante didn't need a long response. He pointed to the 2:47 a.m. phone call. A man who's surprised by a crime doesn't receive calls from the perpetrator discussing the victim's condition and debating next steps. A man who's surprised doesn't talk logistics about a failed ransom plan. A man who's surprised doesn't ask what to do with an 84-year-old woman who's running out of time. The footage captures the exact moment the son-in-law realized no version of this story ends with him walking free. Every lie cataloged, every pivot documented, every attempt to minimize met with evidence that made his position worse. And somewhere down the hallway, Marcus was filling in every gap the physical evidence couldn't reach. 6 hours. That's how long it took for a man who walked into that room, believing he was the smartest person in it, to completely unravel under the weight of his own lies. And the most disturbing part of this entire interrogation, not the evidence, not the searches, not the phone call, it's the fact that across 6 hours and dozens of opportunities,